All right, guys, how's it going? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard. Today I want to talk to you about concealed carry and specifically inside the waistband holsters versus pocket holsters or outside the waistband. This is something that I've been wrestling with for the last year and a half. I'm really new to the Pro 2A community and concealed carry. This is something that, like I said, I've only got about a year and a half in. Now, there are a lot of unwritten rules about what you're supposed to wear, where you're supposed to wear it, what kind of firearm you're supposed to have, the capacity, the round count, all of these things. And guys, a lot of it to me personally, it just doesn't make sense. And I want to kind of talk about that and just kind of go over with you some of the things that I'm seeing. And I'm doing this from a position of discussion. I am not an expert. I clearly am not in any position or place to tell you what's best for you or what's best for your personal protection. But I just kind of want to go over some of these different carry methods and some of the different firearms and maybe start this discussion, because when I look throughout the Pro 2A community, I don't see an open discussion. I see a lot of people saying that you have to carry something like a full-size Glock 17 with a rail-mounted optic or light, and I just don't feel like that's practical for me personally, and I want to have this discussion. So thanks for joining me today, and again, these are just my positions, my opinions, and I offer all of this from a position of discussion. Now, before we go any further, we're going to go ahead and safety check and clear all firearms. There is no magazine in the Glock 17. I'll set that right there. This is the Glock 26. Making sure not to flag my cameraman there. There's no magazine or round in the chamber here for the Glock 26. This is the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380. And there is no magazine in 380. That is safety checked. And on my person right now is the Glock 43. I'm carrying that in the 4 o'clock position. And this has been safety checked, okay? Now, there are rounds in the magazine for the 43. I'm going to take these rounds, I'm going to place them off camera. Stand by. So the rounds for the 43 have been moved. And safety checking one more time. And we're good to go. So, all right, we're going to start with the Glock 17. Now, the Glock 17, along with the Glock 19, these are the standard firearms that I'm seeing most people carry, and they're carrying this inside the waistband appendix. Now, the Glock 17 is really your full-size Glock. This is a Gen 3. I've got the Holosun red dot on it. I've got the TLR1 rail-mounted light. And for the life of me, guys, I cannot imagine carrying this duty pistol, and this is my duty pistol, I cannot imagine carrying this on a day-to-day basis. I have had a really hard time concealed carrying appendix with my Glock 43, and you can see that the difference between the 43 and the 17, I mean, that is a huge difference in size, in length, in width. I don't have any attachments on the 43, and this alone by itself has been very difficult to appendix carry. So utilizing the 17 or even the smaller version, the 19, I just can't imagine how people are saying that this is a comfortable carry. Now, obviously, everyone is built different. I've got a little bit of a gut. I've put on about 60 pounds over the past year. I'm not built like Lucas Botkins, I think, of T-Rex Arms or some of these forward operators of special forces or military. Maybe that has something to do with how this is feeling for me. But being in the car as a security guard, driving to work, spending time in the car on the way back from work or doing patrols, it is so uncomfortable for me, and at my age of 43, comfort really does play a large part. So I thought about the 43, but let's skip that for a second. My initial everyday carry started out as the Bodyguard 380. Now, there is a 6-round capacity on this Bodyguard 380. It's obviously a very small firearm. Okay, this is something that I personally have carried inside of my right pocket, utilizing a leather a leather holster that just sits right inside my pocket right here. And guys, I've got to tell you, this has been the most comfortable carry pistol that I have ever had. It shoots great. It even has a laser that's already mounted on the Bodyguard itself. I can work, I can run, I can squat, I can jump, I can do everything with this 380. And to me, from day one, this has been the absolute perfect everyday carry firearm. But being a part of this community and following people on Instagram and following people on YouTube, I kind of have gotten into this position where I felt like it just wasn't big enough. The capacity round wasn't big enough. The size wasn't big enough. I'm constantly hearing about how it's harder to control that smaller firearm as opposed to a 17 or a 19. And I've kind of gotten this, I mean, there's no way around it, this penis envy of having such a small firearm and kind of being in a situation where most people are talking about the 380 in terms of caliber or this firearm itself as being a gun that females carry or that women carry. So I started to kind of think to myself, well, maybe I need something a little bit bigger, and then I went to the 26. Now the 26, about the same size as the 43, but it has a 10 round capacity, right? So now I feel like I'm more in line with what people are carrying capacity wise, but the 26 is a very heavy and clunky firearm. Personally, I don't like the way that it feels in my hand. I've got bigger hands, and I even tried this with a extended magazine, but there's just certain firearms that don't feel right to you. I didn't like the way that the Glock 26 shot. I didn't like the recoil. I don't like the way that it feels on my hand. So this really has not been a firearm that I felt comfortable carrying. So this was really out of the equation almost day one, round one of utilizing it. And I thought to myself, okay, well, if you're not going to utilize the 17 or the 19 because that's too big, the Glock 26 doesn't feel right, the 380 gives you this penis envy of not being big enough, what about the 43? Well, the 43 is about the same width of an iPhone, okay, or as an iPhone rather. I did have the trigger modified. It's got a, I believe, a 4-pound trigger on it now. I like the way that it shoots, and then, you know, the capacity on it, I wasn't really good with that because it's a 6-round capacity magazine, but I found that you can actually get a 10-round extended magazine. So let's go ahead and show that. This is a 10-round magazine from the Glock store, which actually shows a extension right about there. Okay, I'm not going to load this firearm, but this gives me a much larger purchase area, right, on the firearm, and it also kind of alleviates that issue of not having that multiple round capacity. So now I have 10, actually plus 1 if you go ahead and top it off. So that alleviates the issue of not having that capacity, and then also having that better purchase area on the firearm. So I feel like I've alleviated one of the major issues of potentially carrying the 43 as my everyday carry weapon over the 380 by increasing that magazine capacity by going to that 10-round extended magazine. But I still have the issue of carrying it. If I'm not going to utilize the 380, I'm not going to have that in the pocket carry method, because with this being a little bit longer and a little bit heavier than the 380, trying to utilize that pocket carry technique, I was seeing that the 43 was having some issues potentially slipping out of the pocket. I didn't feel like I also had enough trigger guard or retention on that with the weight of this firearm. So then I started thinking about Appendix Carry. Now, with Appendix Carry, you're using that holster type, the Kydex holster, that clamshell. And I purchased a Fierce Defender holster. I actually have one on the way from Guerrilla Tactical, but I went about 1 week trying to utilize the Appendix Carry method. That's going to be right here at the 12 o'clock or potentially the 1 o'clock. I had my wife, who is a leather worker, she actually wrapped this Kydex holster in leather. one of the issues that I was finding is that the Kydex itself, it was just pinching my belly fat, it was digging into my body, and it was super uncomfortable. So I tried to alleviate some of that by wrapping the Kydex holster in leather, and it really did help. Moving it to the 1 o'clock position seemed to help. Having that extended magazine, I was able to get a pretty good purchase area on the draw. But guys, listen, honestly, I was having to force myself to be comfortable with it. It just did not feel anywhere near as comfortable, obviously, as the pocket carry with the 380. And I felt like maybe I could do some modifications of adding a heel cup. You could purchase a heel cup, something you would put in your shoes, and maybe that would alleviate the pain. But I kind of feel with firearms and with holsters, it's a lot like a relationship. If you're having to force it to work, it's just not right. So then I thought, there was a time about a year ago when I first purchased my 43 that I actually ordered an inside the waistband Kydex holster like this. Now this holster is made by the exact same company that makes this holster. The only difference is that it's not a sidecar holster. There's no place for you to put that secondary magazine, but unlike the 43, when I'm utilizing the single stack magazine that has 6 rounds and then having that second magazine, now that I have the grip extension, I've got 11 rounds. I don't really need to have that second magazine, and I can go with this. I actually have been wearing this today at the 4 o'clock, okay, 4, maybe 5 o'clock position, just right behind my hip. And guys, it's been a game changer. It's been super comfortable. I've been able to sit, I've been able to bend, I've been able to kind of lean over without any issue of potentially having the firearm fall out. It's completely changed the print of that firearm. There's almost zero printing. Now, it does bring up a couple of other issues, right? If I'm in my car trying to get to that 5 o'clock position to get that firearm, that might be almost impossible in a quick situation. But that's something that I might be willing to deal with in terms of comfort and capacity and having a gun that I feel more comfortable with in terms of the retention and the ability to have that trigger guard there with the Kydex holster. I think that the conversation that I'm trying to bring to you guys right now is that within our community, there's so much in terms of like peer pressure of what you should be wearing, what you should be doing, what you should be utilizing. But I think that there's enough options here that we can all find what's best for us. And I want you guys to feel comfortable wearing and carrying what you feel comfortable with, what you can afford, what you feel is going to actually be there to protect you without having to flex for other people. I've spent a lot of money here collectively to really just get to something that I could have purchased that first time and been completely happy with. So again, this is not me telling you guys what you should do or what you have to do. This is my opinion based on my experience with all of these different firearms, and I think that I'm going to ultimately end up staying with the single Kydex holster at the 4, 5 o'clock position with the 43X and the extended magazine. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Be great.